It's time to roll initiative. My name's Tim Bannock, and this is the DnDLoremaster presents Dungeons & Dragons starter set, Stranger Things version. I would say edition, but nobody likes edition wars. Alright, let's do this thing. So, this is the new Dungeons & Dragons starter set box. You open it up, and the first thing you'll notice that's different from the original Dungeons & Dragons starter set that launched with 5th edition are the miniatures. Yes, there's miniatures. 2, in fact, of the Demogorgon. One has some red stuff in his face to show that he's painted. The other does not, to show that you can paint it, because surely you're a creative and crafty person. There's dice. These are the exact same dice you'll find in the original Dungeons & Dragons starter set for 5th edition. They're the blue color. Those dice were perfect. Therefore, it's objectively true that these are also perfect dice. Fantastic. So, underneath this flap, before I do that actually, let me just show a point about the miniatures. Funny thing, they're like soft and bendy. And so you might at first think they feel really cheap, but the material they're made out of doesn't feel like it will stay bent permanently when you move it. So you know how you have that one D&D miniature that has like the sword and it's bent for the entire time you own that miniature before you lose it underneath like the couch or something, or your cat steals it? These guys aren't going to be like that as far as I can tell, but they are very soft and pliable, which is weird. So it's kind of like they're cheaper and weaker, but somehow more durable. I don't know if that's true. Obviously, long-term play will see if that's right, but they fit right back in that home easily because they are pliable, so that's kind of nice. Removing this weird red flap thing. We have the contents, the rest of the contents. You have the starter set rulebook. This thing is essentially the same starter set rulebook that came with the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition starter set that came out before, but it does have some minor content changes. First of all, the form factor is obviously completely different because it has Stranger Things stuff. Let me move this aside. You're going to see things like chapter headers that include stills from the show. Things like that. Obviously a Stranger Things font for the headers. The text boxes are in a different format. The page things, different formatting to give it that Stranger Things feel. But the content's basically the same. Now I say basically because there are differences. You'll see here that it's 43 pages. The original starter set rulebook, which I have right here, this guy is 32 pages. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm going to get into it a little bit as we go on, but very quickly, the most obvious are the following. You get all the rules of how to play the game, equipment, combat, which is basically a rip of combat straight from the player's handbook, so you have all the rules, which is fantastic. But you're going to see here the spell lists are very different. Because the pre-generated characters, which I'm going to show you in 1 second, are different. You're getting a different list of spells in this book. So you have bard spells, you have cleric spells, you've got paladin, ranger, wizard. The original starter set came with fighter, wizard, cleric, rogue. I almost said thief because I'm an old school player. Very bad. Anyway, that's very different. Very different spell lists, so you're going to get different spells in this set. Not necessarily more, but I believe there might be more. I haven't done a one-to-one match. But again, different spells. That's cool. You're also going to see that magical items and monsters appear in the rule book, whereas those two things showed up in the adventure book, Lost Mine of Phandelver, from the original starter set. So that's a bit of a difference there. They show up in the rule book here. You're getting new monsters like the Demogorgon, some stuff that you wouldn't have seen otherwise or in any other Wizards of the Coast release yet, so that's kind of cool. Random note before I show you the pre-gens, the conditions here on the last page, they're there, that's cool. Not as cool, in my opinion, as the original starter set. You see either here on the back page, like the full back page, so you can have one page at hand, all the conditions. This one, you have to have it open to see the conditions. It takes up more room. Talk about minor nitpicks. That is literally nothing. Nobody cares about that. So, moving on. The pre-generated characters, this is why you're getting some different content. Here they are. There's 5 of them. Notably, oh, they're numbered for your pleasure, so you can see that there's 5. Notably, they start at level 3. That's a big difference from the starter set, or the original starter set, which came out with characters that started at level 1. They could then grow to level 5 in the basically campaign, low-level campaign length adventure, Lost Mine and Phandelver. These characters start at 3. They can also advance to level 5. Okay, so that's, a smaller, more compact series of levels that they go through. And you'll see why in a second. That's actually pretty cool and works with how they're doing this set. But it is something to note. These characters start out more powerful. They can take more hits. They can obviously deal with greater challenges earlier on, and that's important. Third level characters aren't really that much more complex than first level, so it's not like this is kind of lying to you that it's a starter set. Some people may agree or disagree, but I don't think there's a huge difference, and the rules are all spelled out here. You can see it. All the rules are on the character sheet, so it's kind of like, you have everything you need as a player at your fingertips on one character sheet. So, what are the pre-gens? Just to go through them really quick before we move on to the adventure and see why there's some of these changes. We have a Hilldorf Bard, we've got a Wood Elf Cleric, we've got a Human Paladin, you've got a Half-Orc Ranger, and finally the Half-Elf Wizard. I don't think these characters map one-to-one with what the players from the show Stranger Things are running, and they're not meant to. These characters do have ties to the campaign world and the adventure, that very loosely, but you'll see how it's very Stranger Things-y-ish, and yet still very much just D&D. Like, they're not doing anything too terribly experimental with these characters. I'll touch on that in a moment as well. So the adventure. This thing's cool. This is an adventure written by Mike Wheeler, which is a bald-faced lie. It's actually written and edited and created by these people right here. But the whole idea is this thing is meant to look like a notebook. Mike Wheeler's notebook. It has his adventure. It has this sort of handwritten style to it, much more maybe simplistic art, if you want to call it that, although I don't know that that's really the right term for it. There's a map. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. The point is that this looks like a notebook, and there's more to it than that. Look at this. We should be able to finish the story in one night. This is a one-shot. This thing can be done in 1 or 2 sessions. There's not a lot of text on each page because of the notebook layout, and also because of the design of the adventure. The adventure is designed with a very kind of old school flair in that it's compact. There's not an overabundance of text describing every single encounter or secret door or whatever. Everything's described pretty simply. And you see that even in the rules. The rules don't share the exact same language that they do in most 5th edition releases, yet it's still obvious what the rules text means. Here's a great example. DC 10 ability check to detect using intelligence, or disarm using dexterity. That's not the language or syntax we're used to with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition releases and rules in their adventures and rule books and so on. Yet it's here in this to be a bit more compact. It's that natural language thing done in a slightly different way. The point is, it feels like some DM's notes as opposed to a much more structured rules language technical manual, which is cool. It's more compact. The adventure fits in a relatively small number of pages overall. I'm not going to show you everything, but the point is that it's a lot more old school in a lot of ways, and yet that's exactly how Stranger Things should apply to this, which is really cool. The last thing I want to touch on, though, is my criticism. I mentioned it's not experimental enough. That's my only complaint about this thing, and that's complaining about what it isn't rather than what it is. What it is perfect. It's a great gateway to get Stranger Things fans to playing D&D. What it isn't is something more experimental, where they maybe could have done something where the players are humans who pass through the upside down and become their characters. Something like that, like the old Stranger Things take on the old D&D cartoon. That's what I was hoping for. It's not that, but it's awesome. Check this thing out.